Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Assalamualaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome once again, dear viewers, to Discover Islam, Sharjah TV's English language Islamic chat show. We'd like to welcome back a couple of old pals, Abdul, Malik and Youcef Sai. Salamualeikum, brothers.
Walaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
I thought this week we'd talk a little bit about the scientific miracles of the Quran, because as we know, the Quran is not a book of science, but nevertheless it has in it many hundreds of ayahs dealing with scientific data. And one of the proofs of the Quran, I mean one of the things that convinced me, one of many, was that a 7th century Arab living in his environment couldn't have known these things about rainfall, about embryology and so forth. There's a lot of weighty evidence in the scientific miracles of the Quran. Can you pick out something at random and talk about it?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. All praise be to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I would like to start from the very second ayah of the second chapter of the Quran, Surah Al-Baqarah, the cow, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, ذَلِكَ الْكِتَابُ لَا رَيْبَ فِيهِ. That is the book, there is no doubt in it. هُدًى لِلْمُتَّقِينَ. That's the guidance for those that have the consciousness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Quran as a guidance to the right path refers to that in the Quran many times. إِنَّ هَذَا الْقُرْآنَ يَهْدِي لِلَّتِي هِيَ أَقْوَمُ. This is the book which will guide us to the right path. Also, I'll bring up this Arabic poem that it says, جَمِيعُ الْعُلُومِ فِي الْقُرْآنِ لَكِنْ تَقَاصَرْ عَنْهُ أَفْهَمُ الرِّجَالِ. It says, all variety of knowledge is there in the Quran, including science, math, every single thing is there. The Islamic law and criminal law is there. And it's in the poet said that it's we are lacking this knowledge to pick it up from the Quran. Right. So likewise, the science is there in the Quran, of course. And we can divide these scientific ayat in the Quran into many categories. For example, there are some miracles took place. These scientific miracles were mentioned in the Quran. The other part is the predictions mentioned in the Quran, and some historical miracles of the Quran as well. So these are the main categories of the miracles which is touching the science by way or another. For example, from the miracles of the Quran, scientific wise, if you take it, the existence of the world itself, heaven, the earth, oceans, plantation, and the mountains itself. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, هو الذي خلق السماوات والأرض في ستة أيام ثم استوى على العرش. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created the heavens and the earth in 6 days, and then He settled on the throne. And the Quran also is mentioned that He created the earth in 2 days, and the sky in 2 days, and then plantation and the rest of the the existent thing on the earth that we have in another 2 days. This also gradually to teach us to do stuff gradually, but itself because they were created from the smoke. The heavens were smoke in the beginning. So if you ask the scientists today, did they discover in the 7th century that the original of the sky was smoke, for example?
Guesses, yeah. They say
guesses.
Impossible. Yeah.
And especially in that time, there was lack of knowledge.
Completely, yeah.
People were illiterate mostly. So these are something that always Quran is talking about, and we cannot deny that. So Quran is full of science. If you take it from the other side, for example, the iron and metal in the Quran, for example, فيه منافع للناس فيه بأس شديد, for example. Quran said that there are some advantages for the people. There is war, for example, for the war, you can use the
warfare.
So these are all the scientific things that which is mentioned in the Quran by way or another one. And if you also add to that sun and moon, for example, that we always talk about it, and everyone is aware of that. For example, sun and moon, and they're running in their own orbit, and none of them they're clashing with each other. And then the Quranic terminology for sun is different from the moon, because the original light and then the reflection, is always Quran. هو الذي جعل الشمس ضياء والقمر نورا. So Quran used two different wording for the sun and the moon. So for sun it's used ضياء. ضياء means something original light is there.
It's the source of the light.
It's the source of the light. And for qamar it's used the nur, for example, which is the reflection, for example.
Yeah.
So these kind of scientific miracles are there in the Quran. Also, I want to touch on the, since I'm talking about the, the heavens in the sky and the sun. Dr. Najjar Zaghloul, he's one of our, prominent scholar here in Sharjah, and he's coming on TV as well. So he was talking about this, the first heaven, because Quran always refers to the first heaven more than the other. For example, Sama ad-Dunya, the first heaven, and then وَلَقَدْ زَيَّنَّا السَّمَاءَ الدُّنْيَا بِزِينَةِ الْكَوَاكِبِ, for example. Decorated the first heaven with the stars. He said that also that in our human knowledge, because we are very limited, we cannot discover beyond that. If you ask the scientists that, is there any decoration in the second heaven, they don't know that.
No.
We cannot go beyond that, for example. So we are very limited. Yeah, so I mean, there are, of course, Quran is full of science. Yeah.
Yes, of course, we are limited, yeah. Youcef, any scientific miracles?
Well, the first thing is he said, the Quran opens up in the second chapter. This is a book where there's no doubt a guidance for those who are pious. Certainly that tone immediately captivates the attention of the reader. You suddenly realize that, that this book is making quite a claim, that there's no doubt in this particular book. And certainly, the Quran is not a science book, rather it's a book of signs. And certainly nowadays, where people are starting to become very skeptical of religion, the Quran answers the call, if you like, of those skeptics who, if you like, only understand the scientific language. And certainly what you expect from a 7th century, 1400-year-old book is an old book talking about the desert, talking about, Bedouin life and so on and so forth.
Plenty of mistakes.
Plenty of mistakes. But rather, the Quran actually talks about the seas, talks about the mountains, talks about creation in its totality. And no doubt, if we wanted to extract all of the signs or the scientific miracles of the Quran, it would require a few hours for us to do that, and obviously time is limited. But certainly one fascinating sign which drew my attention was the issue regarding the seas, and how Allah explains in His Quran that He lets the seas loose, but they don't mingle or they don't mix. And having read a book, a science book on that, modern technology and modern scientific tools have allowed scientists to deduce that there is an invisible barrier that stops these seas from mixing. Yeah. And obviously when we're talking about seas and the mixing of seas, you're talking in terms of their temperature, their salinity,
yeah,
and their density and so on and so forth. And certainly if you look and compare, for example, the Mediterranean, it's a lot warmer, it's more salty, I think it's less dense or more dense compared to the Atlantic, which is the quite opposite. But investigations show that, obviously going under the water and doing all those experiments, that actually they do not collide. Also the issue about salt water and seawater. Fresh water
yeah,
and salt water, that the fish in the seawater do not go past that barrier, if you like.
Most of them
don't. So those sort of issues regarding the sea really captivated my attention, and I was quite amazed by that. Certainly from a book 1400 years ago, originating from the Arabian Peninsula. I don't think the Prophet Muhammad seen too many seas in his lifetime.
He didn't see a sea.
So
there's another one about the sea as well, about the layers of darkness.
Yeah,
it's referring to
ظلمات بعضها فوق بعض. إذا أخرج يده لم يكن تراها. Quran refers to that, their darkness.